Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, still talking security. And as you may have seen in that welcoming slide, we've got His Excellency, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, Governor of Ekiti State and Chairman of Governors Forum. He joins us this morning from Ado-Ekiti. Good morning, Your Excellency. Thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, the flags of... Yeah.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Thank you. The flags will fly half-mast today in the Southwest for 3 days, as the Southwest governors have directed as a result of the killings in Owo, the church there. So the governors met, reviewed the scenarios there, and then you came up with some release. So could you just give us some background to this? Because even prior to this time, the Ondo State governor has spoken about this. I mean, clearly, many were paid. But what was the immediate impression that the Southwest governors had before calling this meeting?
Well, good morning, Chamberlain, and good morning to your viewers at home. What happened on June the 5th will go down in the annals of Nigeria's history as one of the most heinous, vicious attack on innocent citizens of this country. When citizens get to the point where they are living in fear of going to their normal places of worship, of going to their farms or workplaces, then that's almost a state of Armageddon. And when we met, we were basically not just reviewing what happened, which led to the loss of now over 40 innocent people in Owo, Ondo State, but the general security situation in the Southwest, as well as in the country. And we're still finding it very hard to comprehend what happened, because this is the first time such an attack would happen in the South. So yes, we know that this may have happened in other parts of the country in times past, but we've tried within the limits of our powers to anticipate and prevent this sort of heinous crime against humanity. And that was partly what led to the establishment of Amotekun, which we did almost 2 years ago now, to complement the efforts of the mainstream security agencies. And now we don't want to jump to any conclusion as to why what happened in Owo until full investigations are conducted, and we await the result of those investigations. But pending the time that happens, we feel that we need to build the confidence of our people, address the agitations that are widespread in the whole of the Southwest at this moment, and work with the federal institutions, particularly the intelligence agencies, the security agencies, to reorganize and refocus the architecture in order to respond and address this very unfortunate development. This is a war on the people, and there's no other way to describe it, and that's why we're taking the steps we're taking. Flying the flag at half-mast is just a symbolic indication of how much of a crisis of security that we're in, and why an attack on Owo is an attack on all of us in Nigeria. We are all from Owo now, and we must do everything to stop a repeat of this. And we hope that the security institutions will cooperate with us to address this terrible tragedy that occurred in Owo.
We'll go through some of the recommendations that communique in just a moment, but You know, the governors, the decision you took is not just an isolated one as a result of what transpired recently in Owo, because governors have lots and lots of security information in the states, across the region, across the country. So if normal residents were surprised, I'm wondering, were the governors actually surprised at this, or do you think someone somewhere dropped the ball? That's what I'm asking. What kind of impression and picture do the governors have for this?
Yes, Chamberlain, we are privy to all manner of intelligence, all manner of security information. But it's not all intelligence that is actionable intelligence. And when intelligence is actionable, our duty is to pass it to the relevant institutions responsible for this, even when they come to our attention. I don't want us to jump the gun as far as this is concerned, and that is why I'm not going to go into any detail as to what intelligence we had and at what point we had it. But suffice it to say that the security institutions are conducting their own investigations now. We are also, in our own way, complementing that effort. The governor of Ondo State has already reassured the citizens of the state that he's going to go after these people, track them, apprehend them, and ensure that they are held culpable for this crime against humanity. This is a crime that has attracted global attention. So it's not just us that are now tracking this. There are sister institutions that are not necessarily even Nigerian that are helping to track what transpired on June the 5th. So I would just say that let's tarry, let's await the outcome of the investigation whilst we continue to provide necessary measures to protect the citizens of our states.
Well, does your intelligence also point to ISWAP?
You just heard me that I am not going to go into any speculation. As far as I'm concerned, statements about ISWAP or Boko Haram or whatever other institutions is responsible for this is purely speculative at this stage. I haven't seen any evidence that concretely puts these in the corner of any of these rogue elements that we have. But it really doesn't at this stage matter. They've committed this crime. They've demonstrated capacity to cause maximum damage to our people. Our duty as security officers is to ensure that this does not occur again, and that we go after elements of this nature, whichever organization they may represent within our domains. And that's precisely what is happening right now.
So I'd like you to speak to us specifically now about the outcome of that meeting. Yes, I mean, we understand 3 days of mourning, the flags flying at half-mast and other, related issues, but particularly the outcome of this, because in the communique released, the governors said that this incident and others have compelled immediate intervention to stem the tide. Those are the words used. So what are those immediate interventions that were resolved upon during the meeting?
It's very difficult for me to start going into the specifics of the security arrangements that we have to protect citizens on the full clear lights of Channels Television. That's playing into the hands of the enemy. I'm not going to do that. All I'm going to tell you is that that statement means exactly what it says. Intervention would require a range of interventions, security, economic, political, and otherwise. So just allow us to put it in the manner that we've put it in the communique. And we would continue to work with those institutions that are empowered to take steps to stem the tide of this unfortunate development.
Well, you earlier said as well that, I mean, you have intelligence, you hear from perhaps the people, even Amotekun itself, which we'll come to, but you said not all intelligence is actionable, that what you do essentially is pass that intelligence to the appropriate agencies. I know that for as long as I can remember, this conversation about state police has been on. The governors as a whole, they have resolved that state police is the way to go. And I'd like you perhaps to give us a simple reason as to why state police is not in operation yet, even though we have identified it as a solution, at least a possible solution to these challenges. Is it merely because the president has said it is not an option?
I don't think so. I think the reason why we don't have state police is simply because internal security is in the exclusive list of the Nigerian Constitution. And anything that is in the exclusive list of the Nigerian Constitution resides in the domain of the federal government, the central government. So it has nothing to do, the president is not responsible for the constitution of the country. And I know for a fact that currently the country is going through a constitutional reform process. We don't know yet if that is something that will come out of that process. But that is a process, it's not an event. If citizens have come to the conclusion, just as governors have, that multi-level policing that will complement both federal police is the way to go in order to bring security closer to the people, then there are representatives of the citizens in the National Assembly, and they're the ones responsible for the amendment of the Constitution. We would expect that that's something that will be of concern to them, and that they would activate in the process of constitutional reform. So I don't think it's fair to blame the president. The president may have a personal opinion on this, and is entitled to his opinion, just as other citizens are entitled to their own opinion.
So, Your Excellency, still on the state police, it's not in the ongoing constitution review. So is that to say that this administration is not favorably disposed to it, and as a result, we're left at the mercy of the state of insecurity as it is, and state police cannot address it?
I don't believe that this administration micromanages the legislative process. This administration is a recipient of legislative ideas and thoughts. Don't forget, the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress, has a position on this. We had the Nasru El-Rufai Committee on True Federalism, and one of the recommendations of that committee, which the party adopted, was that most state police should form part of the constitutional reform. So if members of the National Assembly have not come to that decision, it may well be it's because they did not get enough numbers. You know, for constitutional reform process to happen, they need 2/3 of the membership of the legislative body, and that's something that may not have been attained in that process. But don't forget that that process is going through state assembly ratification at this point in time. And I am aware that the state assemblies may have also indicated that they would like to have this as an issue reflected in the constitutional reform process.
Part of the communique was to review Okada operations because of the concern of the influx of Okada in much of the southwest. Are we to expect anything significant in this review of Okada operations in the southwest, particularly an outright ban in their operations?
A review does not necessarily mean a ban. It says a review of the operations, and it's that review that will determine what we do. And it has to be taken on a state-by-state basis as well, even as we try to have a regional outlook as far as that is concerned. I think it's a no-brainer why we're concerned about the activities of Al-Qaeda. We have discovered not once, not twice, in the intelligence gathering that has consistently gone on in our various states, that some of these elements purportedly undertaking commercial transportation are themselves agents of these criminal bandits that are ravaging the whole of the country. And clearly we need to balance the need for economic sustenance at the level of citizens with the need for security of the citizens. And I think that's what that review would come out with.
If then there is no strong measures emanating from this Southwest Security Committee, what would you say to those who say, oh, they're meeting again as they did in 2019, and hence there won't be anything different this time, we're just going to go back to the status quo in another few months? What would your explanation be to that?
Well, I have not told you that nothing would come out of our meeting. As a matter of fact, we are holding a physical meeting. The meeting to which you referred was a virtual meeting in the immediate aftermath of what happened in Owo. But we have now called a physical meeting that would also have security chiefs involved in it. We continue to engage with federal security officials on this matter, and we would just urge our people to be patient. We can understand the grief and the agitation in our communities as far as this issue is concerned, but precipitate action is also not what would get us to where we want to be. We need to be measured, we need to be focused, we need to be driven by data and fact, and we need to ensure that technology begins to play a much more significant role in our security operations. And that's precisely what would come out of this exercise.
Well, the meeting also did recommend that there will be an increase in the surveillance activities of some of these undocumented migrants or residents, as it were. But we also do know that before now, when some of these local security agencies were set up, funding was a challenge. Do we take it for granted that the region will address headlong this question of funding, or is not a challenge at all?
Are you talking about funding, or you're talking about undocumented residents?
There'll be several activities that will be taken.
Because those are two different issues.
There'll be several activities that will be taken.
Absolutely.
The review may mean that you have to deploy certain things to other places. You may need to even up the ante for Amoteco and several other agencies, and funding had always been a challenge. So I'm asking, will funding be an issue this time, or given the scenario now, we don't expect it to be a challenge?
Well, funding would always be a concern of government because we're dealing with competing demands when you are in government, and all of these demands are important, but nothing is more important than the security of our citizens. And that is why in the hierarchy of needs, we need to provide for the security of the citizens, and we will stop at nothing in spending whatever is required in order to attain a level of security that we're comfortable with. So funding in terms of having all the available resources would always be a challenge, but we will prioritize security over other things. And if that means expanding the capacity of the local security network, Amoteco, and supporting the security agencies, which we have always done. We've always supported the police, we've always supported the military, we've always supported civil defense. That is something we do as a matter of fact in all our states. So we will not relent at doing this.
Just to be clear, I mean, still on that point, but the other leg of Chamberlain's question about the undocumented migrants, according to the statement, it says that unidentified people, undocumented settlers are taking spaces in the Southwest. I mean, how is that even possible that people will come perhaps from anywhere and take spaces in the Southwest? That's not an ungoverned space, essentially, a space or a state that has government, that has security operatives. How is that even possible?
I'm sure you know that the Constitution of Nigeria guarantees freedom of movement to all Nigerians, as long as it's proven that they're Nigerians. Where the problem arises from is even in being sure that these are Nigerian citizens. You have mechanisms for documenting people who come into communities. Right from way back, even before we have modern technology, we have always had systems in communities. You cannot come into any local community in the Southwest without someone notifying the royal father, the Oba in that community, and then asking questions about who this person are, what they're doing there, and so on and so forth. But some of the ungoverned spaces being referred to are our forests. Many of these forests are being taken over by elements that are unidentified. And one of the measures that we are taking across the length and breadth of the Southwest is clearing those forests of unidentified elements who constitute a threat to our people, the citizens of Nigeria residing in that particular area. So that's precisely what that statement refers to. You have a lot of forests in the Southwest. It's a heavily forested area, but many of the forests have been taken over by people whose provenance, whose antecedents and knowledge are really not available to government agencies. So working in concert, we would ensure that we do that. And the reason why we have to come together the way we've always done is that those forests traverse our states. I mean, you can come from the Ogbese forest, for example, in Ondo State, and come into Emure Ise in Ekiti State. And you still can go into Kwara, you can go into Kogi via those same heavily forested areas. And it's only commonsensical that we work together in order to stop this influx that is now constituted itself into a security threat to our citizens.
And perhaps that points to the reason why now there's a need to reconvene that Southwest Security Committee, which was also contained in the statement. But I'll need you to speak to a point I made earlier about whether or not your intelligence points to ISWAP, because particularly in that communique issued, the governors talked about this insidious phenomenon of insurgency, about nipping it in the bud. I mean, Southwest is not a place or a region known for terrorism or insurgency. So can you tell us, to what extent has insurgency perhaps taken root in the Southwest?
Well, insecurity comes in different guises. What is insurgency in the Northwest may transform itself into banditry or kidnapping in the Southwest, utilizing the resources that you get from that to continue to fund insurgencies in other parts of the country. What we cannot doubt, even if, as you correctly identified, insurgency has not been a problem in the Southwest, what is not in doubt is the inextricable nexus that now exists between those responsible for insurgency in the northeastern part of the country and those involved in banditry in the northwest, now coming south in search of resources in order to fund their nefarious activities in the areas where they have hitherto operated. And it is that chain that must be broken, that nexus, that is why we in the Southwest that are seeing these activities metamorphosizing into insecurity in our space must be concerned with what is going on in other parts, because we must concern ourselves with insecurity in any part of Nigeria. That is what this has pointed to. We cannot just play the ostrich and say, oh, insurgency in the Northeast is the problem of the governor of Borno and Adamawa, or banditry in the Northwest is the problem of the Northwest governors. Not our business. We all have to become engaged in these issues with a view to clearing all these problems from our country. That is really the ultimate. Is not even to just take an isolated view, because, as I said, these things are inextricably linked, and we must respond to them in an integrated fashion, retool our security architecture, recruit more men into our security agencies, increase the use of technology, satellite surveillance, drone coverage, telephone tracking. All of these things need to now be much more accelerated and revved up in order to address the problem that has now come upon us. Yes, we may not be an insurgency zone, but all of these things, they are pure terror. They are acts of terror. There's no other way to describe what happened in Owo. And it is not different from what had happened in Madala near Abuja, or what has been going on in the northeast of this country. We must take an integrated approach to resolving this problem, not an isolated ad hoc approach.
You know, I do remember some time ago when you visited the Niger State governor, he had a challenge in his state about banditry, kidnapping, and he said he reached out to the federal government and they were not forthcoming. And you said at the time, too, that, look, we shouldn't delude ourselves, that some of these elements, this Boko Haram, ISWAP, whatever they call themselves, have found their way down south, having been dispersed in some of those areas, and we needed the strong response. And in a similar manner now, you speak about this integrated approach. So looking through these comments, at what point does the federal government come in here? Because some of the methods, the strategies you've highlighted here require federal government intervention or cooperation with the Southwest states. When do they come in here?
Well, already the federal government is in. The federal government has its assets in all of our states. The military is here, the security service, DSS is here, the police has always been here, but we need a much more integrated response. We're talking to the National Security Advisor about many of these issues. The president himself is very seized of the challenge that we're faced with in the Southwest. But you know, these are not matters, as I indicated earlier, that I can be divulging specifics to your audience. I would just crave your indulgence to continue to work with these agencies and also restore the confidence of our people by taking measures that are visible, that are measurable, that they can see, taking in the interest of the citizens. Not just tracking these people, but bringing them to book in the shortest possible time.
Your Excellency, this increased surveillance that Chamberlain referenced earlier, and which you have now talked about, collaboration with the military, the police, and other security agencies. As we see it, you know, perhaps it will form part of your recommendations, I expect, after your physical meeting. Will it address this problem of lack of clear chain of command amongst them, which is the criticism against, you know, security agencies as they work together? I imagine, would it be part of the subject that will be addressed at your security meeting? And give us a sense of what recommendations or what conversations would take place in that regard.
You know, we're not military people and we're not police officers. We're concerned primarily by the challenge that we are confronted with: insecurity of our citizens. How the security institutions do their work, that's their professional duty. They're trained. They know how to undertake joint operations, and they do that from time to time. If there is conflict in their areas of responsibility or confusion in delineating who is responsible for what, I'm sure there are mechanisms within the security architecture to address those, and we'll continue to encourage them to do that. All we can do as leaders of our people and chief security officers in our state is to highlight what we see and then call for measures that would enable us sleep with our two eyes closed. And whatever we then need to do to support the security institutions to help achieve that, then we will do it. And we have been doing it, including providing the necessary support to those security institutions in our state and collectively.
You know, there's a lot of frustration in those areas in Southwest and different parts of the country, and rightly so. People will be concerned if this manner of killing happens anywhere in the parts of the country. So what, to the extent that, I mean, we see certain people taking laws into their hands and doing several other things, what would you tell citizens who are watching now who are so frustrated at either the response coming from government authorities or relevant bodies who should be preventing these kind of things from happening? Can you hear me? Oh dear, I think we lost. Not sure. Can you hear me, Excellency? Okay, I think we lost that communication, but just in the nick of time, I guess. Well, we have to thank His Excellency, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, Governor of Ekiti State and Chairman. Okay, Your Excellency, just one more thing. You know, I did say that lots of residents are frustrated, not just in Southwest, across the country, different parts, because when this manner of killing happens, anyone will be frustrated, to the extent that some of them take laws into their hands where they shouldn't be. What would you tell residents who are listening now in terms of what to do, response from them? And
well, I lost you. I lost you somewhere there, Chamberlain, but I thought I caught the tail end of it, which is why citizens should not take laws into their hands because of agitation arising out of these heinous crimes. Yes, the temptation would always be there for citizens to engage in self-protection, but we can only urge them that the best form of self-protection that we need from our citizens at this point in time is vigilance. They need to give us information when they notice anything untoward in their own community, in their farms, or in any part of their area of residence. They need to give relevant information to the security agencies. Yes, we have seen the impact of citizens-led security outfits like the civilian JTF in the Northeast. And we've also seen the impact of citizens-driven a security outfit like Amotekun in the Southwest. Citizens can be part of that, and would encourage them to be part of that, because eternal vigilance is the price to pay for our freedom and liberty. All of us are security agents, and we need to play our part in order for the mainstream official security agencies to be effective at what they do.
All right, Your Excellency, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, Governor of Ekiti State and Chairman, Governors Forum, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
We're back in a moment, everyone. Don't go away.